Cii Radio, where broadcasting perfection comes standard.
It's exactly 7:45 a.m. This is the Weekend Breakfast Show with me, Julie Ali. And next we're going to be talking to Susan du Plessis. She's the owner and director of educational programs. And why are we talking to her? Well, her response to a recent article in a medical journal suggesting that dyslexia is just a myth. There's no such thing as dyslexia. Obviously, Susan has some very strong views on this matter, and we'd like to hear from her. Susan, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Julie.
You are the owner and director of educational programs. Tell us a little bit about what is it that you do at educational programs, where are you based, and then we'll move on to dyslexia.
I'm situated in Pretoria. I've got a clinic there where we assist children with reading and learning and mathematical problems. But we've got 22 clinics throughout South Africa and Namibia, with one opening in Dubai very soon as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. And it's called Edublox, am I right?
Edublox Reading and Learning Clinics, that's correct.
How did this start up for you, Susan?
In 1979, my father developed a little preschool program that he used for my sister, and quite by accident he discovered that this program is very effective to help children with reading and learning problems as well. So it started developing from there, and I've been involved 26 years now. My main aim is really to help and assist children with dyslexia. It's something that I've been reading and researching. I've written books about the subject.
And your background? Are you a teacher? What background do you come from?
I studied psychology and I also studied theology. So that is my background. The psychology helped me a lot. What we do is from a very different perspective of what is currently happening in this field. What we do doesn't come from within your field of psychology.
So you come with years and years and years of experience. This piece of research suggesting that there's no such thing as dyslexia, you're very strongly opposed to that view, are you not?
It's a book written by Professor Julian Elliott. It's called The Dyslexia Debate. And in the book he basically says and suggests that dyslexia does not really exist as a separate disability or problem, which says that dyslexia is incurable, that it's entirely caused by a neurological deficit, that it's inherited, all the negative things, that you can't do anything about it. That I simply do not accept. But I do accept that the problem exists and that we should help and assist the children, and that definitely something can be done about it.
Okay, so let's understand, Susan, what is dyslexia and how does it impact on this little life? And if you don't put any intervention in place, are you then going to grow up with the condition of dyslexia?
The word dyslexia comes from the Greek dys and lexia, which means poor reading. And the term is then used to describe a really severe reading problem. And usually, traditionally, this is a traditional view, is that there's a discrepancy between the child's IQ and his reading ability. So the child is a lot smarter than what his reading ability suggests. Then there are always symptoms like your BB reversal, sequencing difficulties. The child might read instead of enemy, he might say emony. He will lose his place. He will not understand what is read. He will read very slowly and hesitantly. So there are always symptoms as well.
What can the parents do about it? What are the type of interventions that can be put in place? And what happens to the child that doesn't get any support? Does he grow up through life unable to read? Because if you can't read, obviously your growth, your intellectual growth and mental growth is going to be stunted to some degree.
Obviously, if you cannot read, I don't know which career you can follow when you're an adult, that you are not required to really read and to write properly. So I think it really limited the child's choices tremendously if he cannot read and if he cannot write properly. Every child should absolutely learn to read. Now, important when you need to help assist a child with a reading problem, there are two things that we should always consider. The first thing is that a human being can do nothing that he has not learned to do. It sounds like a very simple point, but it's very important to understand. If you have not learned to ride a bicycle, you will not be able to do it. If you have not learned to drive a car, you will not be able to do it. And that also implies that there is not necessarily something wrong with a person if he cannot do something. I cannot play golf because I haven't learned. A human being can learn anything, nearly anything, provided that we teach that child or that human being according to viable learning principles. And one of the most important learning principles that applies to all human learning, and your solution for dyslexia is kind of locked into this principle, is the principle that learning is a stratified process. In other words, you have to master one thing first before it becomes possible to master the next. And you have to master that before it becomes possible to master the next. Set this principle when we play any sport. If you want a child to learn to play ice hockey, you'll know where to start. I mean, you must first learn to ice skate. And once he can do that, he still can't play ice hockey. Now he must learn all the foundational skills, for example, to control the puck with a stick and to pass and to shoot. And once he can do that only, and he can do that very well, can he start to learn to play ice hockey? It is exactly the same with reading. There are certain things that the child must learn first. And until those foundational skills have been put into place, the child will continue to struggle. Not because there's anything wrong with the child, but simply because he lacks those cognitive foundational skills. And that is what everything we do is all about, is to teach the child those cognitive skills that are required in the reading process.
What are the symptoms or signs that I have to look out for in my child to realize that there's a reading problem here? At what stage would I be able to pick it up, and what do I do?
Well, something that I still see so often is definitely the B and the D reversals. That's really, I think, about half the children that I see with reading problems, if it's called dyslexia or whatever we call it. That's definitely something I see very often. Children losing their place, children not remembering what they have read, not understanding the text that they've read. Some of them can actually read fluently, but if you ask them, what have you read, they've got no idea. So these are the things that you have to look out for.
What can mom or dad do about it? I guess the one solution is go to Edublox. How long would they be at Edublox before they're able to read and comprehend their reading? Is it something that can be fixed in a certain period of time, and then can you say to mom and dad that you're going to have a child that is cured of that problem at age X? Look, I know that one can't generalize because different people develop at different stages and ages of their lives. But how long does a child have to be on this program, or any program for that matter, to overcome dyslexia? Or is it something that there'd still be a certain percentage of throughout their lives?
What we do is, before the children enroll at our clinics, we do an assessment. The intention of the assessment is really to see how far the child is behind in terms of the cognitive skills, like your concentration, perceptual skills, memory. Memory skills are very important for reading and then logical thinking. And we'll also do a reading and a spelling assessment to determine if the child is 1 year behind, 2 years behind, 3 years, etc. And based on that, we can actually calculate in terms of hours. The child will need so many hours to overcome the problem. Most of the children overcome their problems within about 18 months and 2 years, completely overcome it. And once you've overcome it, it's forever. It's not going to come back when you've really, really dealt with a problem. So it is something that it's about lifelong learning.
But to Susan, does it also mean that once you've overcome the problem, being on the program for about 18 months or 24 months, that you would say to the parents that for this particular person or child, the best thing for them is encourage the love of reading throughout. They shouldn't stop reading because that is what's going to hold them in good stead? Or would they then just fall into the regular group of young people and young children, read as they will or wish or want, and whether they read or not, the problem's just not ever going to come back again?
Absolutely, Julie. That child will have to continue to read regularly. Once you've solved the problem, You can't stop practicing. Once you can play ice hockey and you stop playing ice hockey, you're going to lose the skill. Really something that you have to continue with.
Okay, interesting caller here. I'm an adult. I'm 30 years old. I think I'm sure I've got dyslexia. It's something that was never picked up by my parents. My teachers called me stupid throughout my schooling years. I'm convinced I have dyslexia. I have problems reading and comprehending. Is there hope for me? What do I do? We're talking now about adults realizing that they are possibly dyslexic. What programs or what is it that they can do to overcome this hurdle in their lives?
Something I have to emphasize is it's never too late to overcome a reading or a learning problem. We are never too old to learn. It's never too late. Please contact any of our clinics. I'm sure once you've understood that there's nothing wrong with you, you're not stupid or anything, it's just some skills that have not been put into place at the right time when you were younger. I'm sure you'll have the courage to go through it and to overcome your difficulty.
And just a whole new world opens up to you because you can read and your imagination just kicks in, the theatre of the mind kicks in, and there's a whole new world opened up to you. Just before we wrap up, in terms of costing, I think that's uppermost on everyone's mind. My child has got this problem, I have this problem, I need to have it seen to. In terms of costs, not only financial but time as well. What are we looking at?
We are looking at an assessment which will cost you 400 Rand, and then the class fees work out at 130 Rand for an hour and a half. For most people, that is also very affordable. Some children come for 2 lessons a week, some come for 1. So it works out roughly a little bit over 400 Rand per month if you come for 1 class per week. If you come for 2, it's double that.
We spoke right at the beginning of the program, we spoke about reading and learning, and I think you threw in maths there as well. Edublox only focuses on reading, or do you do a bit of work around arithmetic as well?
We've got a program called Mathblocks where we deal especially with math problems. The thing is that you always have to solve the reading problem first before you deal with a mathematical problem. And very often just by solving the reading problem, the math will come right as well. Because many children struggle with mathematics because they can't read the question. How can you do a word sum if you can't read properly? But sometimes it doesn't come right by itself once you've solved the reading problem. So then we've got a program called Mathblocks.
I guess the same rules would apply here in terms of an adult who's been hopeless at maths and would like to maybe catch up or do something about it. Like you said, never too late to learn. They could join a program like Mathsblock and overcome that hurdle in their lives.
Our Mathsblocks program, unfortunately, runs only for primary school children. Something like Master Maths or whatever would probably be much better for an adult.
Great stuff. Susan, give us a website address or a telephone number for people interested in getting in touch with you.
It's www.edublox, EDUBLOX, either .co or .za or .com. So it's edublox.co.za or .com. And our telephone number is 0861 Edublox. So they can phone 0861 Edublox to get to our call center, who will then direct them to the closest Edublox clinic.
Great stuff. So for more information, you can go to their website, edublox.co.za or edublox.com, or you could phone them on 0861 Edublox. Susan, thank you for indicating that there is hope that you can overcome dyslexia and maths problems. And it's just really an investment of a couple of months, and you've got your child back on track to a very normal reading and learning environment. So there is hope out there. And like Susan says, it's never too late. Thank you for clearing that up with us, and have yourself a great day.
Thank you, Julie. Same to you.
Bye-bye. That was Susan du Plessis from Edublox, owner and director of this educational program, talking to us about there being hope after dyslexia.